Choices: repent or prepare to regret. During the first bout of prayer, I saw us as horsemen, mostly on brown horses. We were dressed as cowboys. Most, if not all of us, were dressed in black cowboy hats too. We were sent to raid a certain place on behalf of a people and also free them. What came to mind were the scenes in the Robin Hood movie, where he always went raiding the storehouse of the oppressive sheriff, who in slavery to the church was oppressing the people by levying them heavily and making them poorer by the day. He would raid the storehouse and give back to the poor what was taken from them. Just as it was a very dangerous job for him, it was going to be for us. We had an advantage, however, which he didn't have: our starting number. Aside the one-handed Arabian trainer he had, Robin Hood was a one-man army until the end, when he mobilized the people to fight, which was what precipitated the final victory. However, I saw us go for the raiding together, an army armed with swords. I personally saw one of us, I think it was me, armed in both hands with identical scimitars, a sword of Persian origin that features a curved blade with very long blades. One thing that caught my attention was, because of the cowboy dress code, there seemed to be neither male nor female amongst us. There were warnings that came with this assignment. The riders or raiders were never to get distracted with trying to control the movement, that is, direction of their horses, while on the mission. They were to concentrate on being skillful with their scimitars while on their way to where the operation was to take place. The horses were already programmed to move according to the instructions of the master who sent them out. These instructions were encoded in the scimitars the raiders were given, and therefore, the more skill each rider had acquired with their scimitar, the less they would have to worry about the horses. Mastering the scimitars was equivalent to mastering the horses as well. These raiders were to learn to be ambidextrous with the swords, perfectly skillful with the sword using both hands. Psalm 144 verse 1 by David. Blessed be Adonai, my rock, who trains my hands, not hand, for war and my fingers for battle. Deuteronomy chapter 9 verse 15. I came down from the mountain. The mountain was blazing fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my 2 hands. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 17. Moses had the 2 tablets of stone in his 2 hands. These tablets contained God's laws or word, which is the sword of the Spirit. Another good point to note about these raiders was that they were learning to use the swords while their horses were still on the way to the main place the operation was to happen. I believe this points to the fact that though we are already receiving training in the field, just as the Lord had spoken, we are yet to begin the real battle. All these, though they have real consequences, are but our preparation for the main battle, the finals of this age. The raiders must be consciously careful not to despise their trainer. Robin Hood was trained by a one-hand, seemingly limited person. With his limitation, he was much wiser, larger at heart, daring, and willing to harm his flesh in all the ways possible to make himself stronger. He had more skill, and so he taught Rob how to shoot faster, more precisely. He made him to do heavy tasks, just so he became much stronger. Note, Rob was already a soldier. He had quite some skill and strength already. But in the face of a greater battle to fight, one needs to be humble and learn more. The 1% you don't yet know and are unwilling to learn because of pride will be your ultimate undoing in the face of a higher battle that requires more of you, especially when the more that is required of you is the 1% you despised because of despising your trainer. This is a very ardent warning for those of us newer Christians who might be feeling puffed up because apparently they have had some knowledge of God before now, and also for some of the older Christians amongst us who still struggle with things like, "But I was born again before him." Humility is the key to avoiding humiliation at the battlefront. Either ways, you will be humbled. You can either choose humility as a priority or as an eventuality. The latter is always more painful. With our pastor, the seemingly absent hand he has might be, for instance, it has not been given to him at this time to engage in direct prophetic encounters as many of us would. Howbeit, we all know by reason of use that the wisdom God has given him via his desire to see God's will fulfilled in our lives and beyond is a vital weapon for our surviving even in our prophetic journeys. A major way to despise him would be to refuse to go on these journeys and encounters, even when it is clear that invitations into such is divine. Of course, he may as well like to go on these journeys himself and receive that which God is offering into his body, but then it is not altogether appropriate for the trainer to take on the duties he is training the trainees for. His duty is to train. If the commandant left his duty of giving instructions to the foot soldiers to go carry the guns himself, then the defeat of the army would be as sure as the disarray that would come in from a lack of instructions. Another way of despising would be to get intel and keep it to yourself. These acts are equal to despising God himself. We all must repent or wait to regret. This is when choices are to be made. There's no time to come back to this time, really. The raiders must not be unarmed with the assurance that the enemy they're going to face will not give up easily and will also retaliate. That you kicked the strong man out of his house doesn't mean he will not try to come back for his house. Being assured of this gives you a reason, secondary to the fear of God and the hope we have, to never stop being a soldier. It simply means that there's neither a time to consider cooling off nor time to ever pull off your armor. There definitely isn't any time for the folly of testing the depth of the waters of the world with our feet. There simply is no time. This, however, must not be confused with the ungodly fear of being defeated in battle. 30th October 2019. Brother S.E. Copyright Game Watch.